Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Quote of the day. And, the more I find out about Adam Kinzinger, the more I kind of like him. It's sad he's not going to be around. But he said, I hate to be so personal, but Josh Hawley is one of the worst human beings and a self-aggrandizing con artist. He said, when Trump goes down, I certainly hope this evil will be laid in the open for all to see and be ashamed of. And what he's talking about is, and this is amazing to me. I guess I grew up during the Cold War, and the idea that the Republican Party would be on the side of Putin and the Russian government just, it doesn't sit right with me. But evidently this is what he's saying. Basically, let Ukraine go. Let them be on their own. Walk away from them, and let Putin do what he wants. I struggle with that, and I think Jen Psaki was right. He should be. It's disgusting that he's basically parroting Russian talking points, and I'm still struggling with how the Republican Party got that far off of the beaten path. And here to share some thoughts on, maybe how that happened and if there's any hope. I've asked Jeff Timmer to come talk with us. Jeff is a political strategist, senior advisor with the Lincoln Project, also co-founder of Republicans and Independents for Biden, also the co-host of a fabulous podcast, A Republican Podcast One. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look on how to get to that. But Jeff, thanks for taking some time for us.
Thanks, Rick. It's very nice to be here. And, where the Republican Party is today, is just, it blows my mind, having grown up in the Republican Party, having worked in the Republican Party for 30 years, having directed and led the Michigan Republican Party, watching these Republicans, or so-called Republicans, parrot the talking points of the Kremlin. The party that helped win the Cold War is dead and gone, and it's been replaced by these fraudulent imposters, people like Josh Hawley, who have no conviction, who stand for nothing, who don't understand what America stood for, and it's horrible to watch, and it's frightening to think that they're that close to coming back into power.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, but you think about the Republicans love to throw Ronald Reagan out as the sainted one and all of that. And I've said a number of times, Reagan is nowhere recognizable in this party. The fact that the person who's given credit for bringing down the wall and the fall of communism and all of that, to now have that same party siding with Vladimir Putin, I struggle with that. I think there are some Republicans that do too.
There are, and Kinzinger's a great example. And there's a lot of Republicans who cravenly and cowardly sit by and watch this all happen, afraid to say anything because they think it will cost them. They think it will cost them their position of power, their chairmanship, or their role in the party. And if these people today who are elected or who are serving as Republicans around the country had been in charge during the 70s and 80s, the wall never would have come down. The Soviet Union would have never been defeated because these people stand for nothing.
Well, I don't know about that. They stand for tax cuts. We gave tax cuts to the very wealthy. They stand for Trump being reinstalled as president. There's some things they value. They're just not American values. They're just not democratic values.
Right. Yeah. And democracy with a small d, they're against that too. And so, the fact of the matter is now we have two kinds of people in this country. We have Republicans and we have Americans. And that's where we stand today.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the messaging that I've been trying to get my Democratic friends to come around to. The reality is, in this moment, the boat's on fire, and we better all be grabbing buckets because it's democracy or not. Do you believe in institutions and the rule of law, or do you not? That seems to be a very simple choice. Could even fit on a bumper sticker.
It could, but then I watch the congressional Democrats play their baseball game, annual baseball game with the Republicans and pretend everything's normal like it used to be. Those are the kinds of things that people need to wake up and realize the game has fundamentally changed, and the Republicans they're not just playing by different rules. They're taking the game board, tipping it over, and eating the pieces.
I'm actually speechless because I couldn't have said it better myself. You're dealing with people who are willing to burn the house down, which is why I think Adam Kinzinger came out and said, look, we have to have some uneasy alliances. And I've talked about this for, well, now a long time. We've had Joe Walsh on the program numerous times over the last couple of years. And, if you would have told me in 2010, 11, 12 that I would be friendly with Joe Walsh and fighting in the same direction, I'd have told you were crazy. But here we are. We agree on nothing policy-wise except the fact that we believe in democracy and we believe in the rule of law. And that's enough to bring us together. So I'm guessing, that would be an example of his uneasy alliances that Kinzinger's talking about.
No, definitely. And it was so refreshing to see Kinzinger say what he really thinks about Josh Hawley, because it's so rare in politics that people actually say what they think. And there's people think that about Ted Cruz, they think that about Josh Hawley. It was great to hear. And the fact of the matter is, we are at a point where it doesn't matter that we used to be partisan opponents when things were normal, that we disagreed on what marginal tax rates were or should be back in 2012. I get people coming at me all the time from the left saying, but you helped create this. Okay, but what are we going to do about it now? I can't go back and change what I did in 2012. I can only go forward and change what we're going to do in 2022. And that's fight for the soul of this country.
Which is why I didn't bring that up to you. I mean, to be honest, it's one of those questions that everyone goes, well, you're responsible, and we want to hang this around someone's neck. And I'm going, no, Jeff, your sins are going to be forgotten for now. We got work to do. Let's move forward. We can bicker about that other stuff later when we're not worrying about a dictator in the White House with the largest military basically in history at his disposal. I think that's a little more pressing.
Well, definitely. And, I'm not looking to somehow get Republicans back into power down the road. So I don't somehow think they're going to suddenly pivot and, that there's any way that they can be redeemed. The Lincoln Project isn't looking to now go out in 2026 or 2028 and start electing Republicans again. Those days are done. This party, as we knew it, the party that we grew up in, that's dead. And it's gone. Someday there will be a stable center right again in this country, but it's not going to be for a long time.
Yeah. Now I get the same kind of messaging from the left. That the Democratic Party is just as bad. We should abolish both of them. This kind of both sidesism that we get all the time. Is there any redemption for the Democratic Party, do you think? Because look, I think you're right. I think the Republicans are beyond redemption. What about the Democrats, for those who are out there thinking, well, the Democrats are just as bad?
Well, I think they need to wake up and recognize what's at stake here. This isn't about whether or not you agree with what they're doing on policy, whether they're going far enough. It has nothing to do with policy. We're not going to have the luxury of debating whether or not we should forgive student loans, or whether or not we should expand Medicaid, Medicare. We're not going to be able to have those debates if we're not allowed to vote, if democracy disappears. And it's not sensational, it's not hyperbolic to say that is possible. Look at where we've come and how quickly we've got here, how far we've moved in just the last 5 years, to a point where we now have one major party who just refuses to accept the outcome of elections. And there's 70 million people who go along with that. We are hanging by a thread here, and we have to defeat them, or they're going to destroy us.
And this is where my frustration is.
I mean,
and you hit it on it a second ago, that they're going to go play baseball together. Joe Manchin's having parties with with Republicans and doing all this stuff, and I'm going, if it is as we're saying, and I believe it is. I don't believe you're being hyperbolic. I believe the rule of law is under attack. I believe 230 plus years of history is under attack. How come we're not seeing that out of the Democrats? And that's what the message is. Why aren't we seeing that sense of urgency that you and I both feel? I think the average voter is asking that question.
Well, I think we're starting to see some good signs of it. I mean, we're seeing, I think, more focused rhetoric coming out of the White House, out of the January 6th committee in the House. I think those we have to recognize they're moving slower than I think all of those of us who realize what has transpired, the depth and the breadth of the crimes and the people involved would like to see. But if they're going to prosecute this case, if they're going to be turning over evidence to the DOJ, if the DOJ is doing their job, they've got to make sure that they hit this out of the park. They can't go out and start arresting Republicans, arresting Trump, arresting those involved in January 6th until they've got an airtight case that's going to stand up in a court of law. Because if they swing and miss, it's all over too.
No, you're absolutely right. But, I keep coming back to, and maybe this is just me looking at the Republicans and how masterful you guys used to be in messaging and how masterful they really are in the media machine that they control. This stuff should have been done last year. We should be much further down the road. And I know if the Republicans were doing this, and I look at the Benghazi hearings, that's all we would be hearing about.
I agree. I mean, I look back and think of all the times I've screamed at my TV and screamed at my screen and screamed on Twitter over the last year about what are we doing? Why are we talking about this? Because we need to be elevating the urgency, nationalizing this election. This is if the Democrats fight this election on the terms of that they would in a normal off-year election, where all try to localize each race and pretend that this bigger picture attack on democracy itself isn't happening, we're in for a world of hurt. They've got to wake up. They've got to nationalize this election around the principle of democracy. It's the only thing that's going to forestall the Republicans from getting at least one of the chambers in Washington back, and then it's going to be mayhem for the last 2 years of President Biden's first term.
I'm right there with you. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show with Jeff Timmer. Jeff is a political strategist, senior advisor with the Lincoln Project, co-founder of Republicans and Independents for Biden, also the co-host of a Republic podcast, where you can get all your podcasts. Look for that. We'll get links out on social media how you can do it. Now, Donald Trump, called Lindsey Graham a rhino. The guy who basically had his head up Trump's butt the whole time he was in office is now being attacked because he had the audacity to say pardoning the January 6th rioters would be inappropriate. Now under the bus. Does this matter to any of his supporters?
No, it doesn't. The loyalty is a one-way street. Trump has none toward any of the sycophants who've been humping his shin for as long as he's been in office, or now since he's left office. And somebody like Lindsey Graham, Trump says calls him a rhino. Lindsey gets all anxious and stressed and pees on the carpet for a couple days, but he'll be back down at Mar-a-Lago. He'll be playing golf and sucking up and saying I didn't really mean it, and Trump will give him a couple noogies on his head and I don't know, make him play golf without pants or something to so that he feels chastened. But Lindsey will be back there looking for the love.
I'm sorry, but I've got that image in my head, and I can't unsee that. That is just not, and you've broken my wife. She can't now unsee it. Now the next part I was going to go into was the weird thing is that people put up with this. I look at the Ted Cruz's, I look at the Grahams, and they put up with it because evidently there's this belief that the base is so powerful. But yet I'm looking at some of the fundraising numbers, and the people that Trump has backed, their fundraising is lagging behind, even as the Republicans that are running for office are getting much more extreme. What do you make of that?
Well, he's getting behind and endorsing these I don't know, outright kooks who have no political skills, who have no political networks, and so this fundraising is a new thing for them. What isn't, I guess, factored in yet is the value, the what they're going to realize from Trump's support and endorsement in many of these primaries. And then in red states, in safe Republican primaries, the endorsement of Trump could be enough to overcome the traditional fundraising structure of the establishment Republicans, to use the term that they would apply. It may be enough, but everyone, they like to point to, we'll recreate the Glenn Youngkin model. You can't recreate Glenn Youngkin when you've got these candidates with three eyes. They're Star Wars Cantina characters, and that's who the Republicans are going to be nominating in these states like Michigan and Arizona and Pennsylvania and Georgia.
And hopefully every one of those states don't nominate someone like Terry McAuliffe, who I thought ran just a poor campaign and did all the wrong things at the wrong time. So I'm hoping that is. But, recently we talked with Joe Trippi, who's a Democratic strategist, and he was saying that he's hopeful that the Democrats aren't going to lose because Republicans have gone off the deep end. And I'm going, yeah, I don't know. I think they've gone off the deep end already. I don't know how much further off the quote-unquote deep end they can go when the Confederate flag is marched through our Capitol, and that doesn't send the country into a collective bit of insanity, wanting blood. I don't know what else does, though.
Yeah, when the news breaks over the weekend that there was the second memo, that there was plots to seize the voting machines, seize the ballots, have the military effectively help install Trump in a second term, even though he had clearly lost the election. And that's not the biggest news story of the day. Everyone's up Monday morning going, hey, Tom Brady retired. I don't know. How do we get past that? Apathy is the enemy of democracy, and we've got to wake people up, or we don't deserve to have what we've had here in this country, and we need to make an exfil plan. Yeah. Head to Canada.
You're spot on. I actually just tweeted that out yesterday. Look, division's a problem, but apathy's a much bigger problem, because you don't have people who are I don't think outraged enough in this moment. Now, here's the other part of this, and I think I learned this in 2011 when they tried to recall Scott Walker. People are just tired of being inundated with all of this insanity. They just want to go back to their lives, and they've written off politics, which is a win for people like Trump, and I would argue, people like the Republicans.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, their apathy is, they can make the noise go away, the constant deluge, when the government takes over all the airwaves and you have people, jackbooting, goose stepping down the main streets of the country. Then they can, not worry about politics. It's going to be too late, clearly, at that point. Yeah. But we've got to make people care more about who wins these elections than who wins American Idol.
Last question, about 20 seconds. The Democrats got a chance? Do you think it's possible they hold on to one or both chambers?
I absolutely do. I think the cake is far from baked. There's so many things that can happen with COVID, with the economy, with international, with what's going on in Ukraine. There's so many things that can change the trajectory of this race.
Good stuff. Jeff, I appreciate the time. Sure. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
I hope to, Rick. Thank you for having me.
Good stuff. Jeff Timmer. Political strategist, senior advisor there with the Lincoln Project. Remember, check out his podcast, A Republic Podcast. We'll get links out on social media. You can do that. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.